today's video, we are going to be speaking about prototyping. So whether you have your own physical product store or you sell on Amazon or you're interested in selling online and are looking to manufacture products, you may find yourself needing to get prototypes. You may find yourself needing to pay for molds. And I want to talk about a different way to approach that. Molds can cost thousands of dollars. And sometimes you're going to need to use a product, to test a product before you are able to make a decision for the final design of the product. And if you spent thousands of dollars for a mold, had a sample sent to you, and then you need to make a change to it, you're going to need to spend thousands of dollars on a new mold. So I'm going to be speaking about 3D printed molds, silicone molds, soft molds, and going to be telling you a story of a recent project that I've been working on, where I show an example. I'll show it here. I show an example of how the product that I've been working on is not this, but I use this as an example. Let's pretend the handle of the product needs to have its own mold, but I need to have samples first in order to be able to hold it, to use it. So that's what I'm going to be showing you in this video. So if you're interested in that, make sure to watch this to the end. It's a very interesting video. I also share my screen and show different conversations with the sourcing agent that I've been working with for this specific project. If you're new here, my name is Sharon Evan and I am a product developer. I'm an Amazon seller and I'm also a coach. I do one-on-one coaching with people who are looking to either sell on Amazon or to look to start to produce their own product line, etc. So if you're interested in content to do with that, I highly recommend that you subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to also hit that notification bell so you know when I bring out a new video. If you're in need in one-on-one coaching, I will also put a link to my services down below. And without further ado, I'm so excited to share this video with you. So let's get into it. Welcome back. In today's podcast / video, I'm going to be speaking about prototyping and how you can save a lot of money if you get your product samples either 3D printed, or if you have your molds made as sample molds initially. So I'll give you a little bit of a backstory. This year, I've been working on a project for a specific brand where the products launched within this brand. So before I start saying that, I sell on Amazon and I've been selling on Amazon for a long time, but I consider myself, first a product developer. And apart from obviously developing our own products, I also help other people to develop products. And this means that I have the opportunity to have, my footprints in many different types of products. So the story that I'll be telling you guys about today, which will lead to the point of the podcast, is basically for a product type where the main differentiation point of the product is the design. Less the functionality. The product functions the same way that all the other products function. It's more the design, and the design is made for a very specific buyer avatar, which in this specific case is children. Okay, it would be the parents buying the product, but the functionality, the product itself should be more appealing, obviously for a child. There's no one in this specific niche focusing on children, and that's part of the differentiation. And it's more a design dependent product rather than a price / review dependent product, which is the type of products that I believe in. And for the sake of example, I'm going to basically use a pot and a pot lid, or a pan and a pan lid, as an example to explain the backstory, or to explain the product basically. So I'm going to be holding now, so if you're listening to this on the podcast, I'm holding a pan or a pot, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to pretend that the differentiation point, so let's just say again, for the sake of example, it's the same pot / pan. And the only differentiation point is the design of the handle. Okay, so for the sake of example, in my right hand, I am holding a simple pot / pan that just has normal handles, okay, with a little bit of a silicone cover to it. There's nothing different about it. It's just a normal pot. Whereas in my left hand, I'm holding a pot / well, this is definitely a pot and not a pan. And then the differentiation point here is that the handle has a silicone, I think it's silicone, it may not be silicone actually. Anyway, it has, the handle basically has a cover which is the shape of Mickey Mouse hands. Okay, now obviously I don't have a license to sell any Mickey Mouse products, and this is not the product, this is just for the sake of example. So in our case, the main differentiation point is basically the functionality of the product is the same, but the main differentiation point is the handles, let's just say, for example. And that obviously requires a mold, okay? Because we're changing the design of the mold. It's a third-dimensional mold. We're changing the design of the product. It's a third-dimensional product, a 3D dimensional product, and it requires a mold. Now, I've put the pots away. Now, when you make such a, when your differentiation point is basically obviously the design of the product, you also need to have proof of concept. Now, for this specific brand, we already know that it works because we've launched it in a different way. I'm trying to think about how to explain without giving this thing away, but long story short, we didn't want to go and spend here, a lot of money on a mold without getting samples first. So because we knew that we will probably need to make changes, we needed to feel and hold the products and use them and get the specific type of buyer avatar as well to use them, which is kids. So we want it to fit in a child's hand, etc., different age groups. So this means that we needed to have samples before the final mold was going to be made. So I have been in product development, basically my whole entire adult life. And the person that I'm working on with the project, I said to them, look, I highly suggest that we first get a 3D printed sample of this for the sake of holding and feeling the product, of seeing what it's going to look like. And once we have a 3D printed version of it, then we can send, obviously, we can make any changes we need to make to the CADs. And from there, we can send those CADs to the supplier, and we can ask the supplier to make a sample mold, which basically can be used once or twice. And then from that sample mold, we can get the samples made, sent to us, and have a look and use the product and see the product. Basically, it would be a pre-production sample, and we can see the product and we can use it. And if we need to make any final changes to the product, then we didn't go and spend $1,000+ or however much a mold for this specific product would cost. And we didn't go and spend thousands on that first. We spent instead hundreds, and then we went and made the changes and had a new sample mold done, new sample sent, etc. So not a lot of people know that you could get samples made when your whole differentiation point is design. Not a lot of people, I'm surprised to say this, but not a lot of people know that you can get 3D printed designs and also temporary molds made. So what I wanted to do was I also wanted to show you guys, and I'll read it out for the people listening to this on the podcast. Also wanted to show you guys the conversation between me and the sourcing agent. So on this specific project, we're working with both a sourcing agent and also directly with suppliers in order to, have different price points, etc. basically. And we're also getting samples made from the sourcing agent plus manufacturers that we're working with. We'll then compare them and then make a decision who to move forward with. So, okay, this isn't not example. This is an actual conversation that I had with the sourcing agent. So I just want to read out the conversations here so that A, you can see, or maybe this can help someone basically, and B, also see how we approach this. So the first thing is, I always believe in having end-to-end agreements done on a product that is highly differentiated. People can argue whether it's worth it or not. Doesn't matter. I do. I have a Chinese lawyer in which I work with, and we basically had an end-to-end agreement done with this sourcing agent. I've worked with the sourcing agent in the past, but it doesn't matter. Every new project, especially if it's with a client and not my own, it means it's a new business. I make sure that we have an end-to-end agreement made. So you can see here the sourcing agent wrote, hey, hi Sharon, any news for the end-to-end? If you still haven't got the lawyer, maybe you can use our end-to-end template. Thus we can move this project faster. Now this is not them in any way trying to scam me or anything. But I'm not interested in using a supplier or a sourcing agent's end-to-end agreement. I'm interested in using an actual real end-to-end agreement, which can be viable in a law of court in China if ever I wanted to enforce it. And that's why I do it through my lawyer. So this was my answer. Hey, sourcing agent name. Thanks for reaching out. I said hi, not hey. Thanks for reaching out. We have been working hard on prototyping, which is why the project has been delayed. They were basically trying to speed me up, but we were in the middle of getting 3D prototypes done in America. We want to have all the right documents in CAD so that the first set of samples and pricing will be on point. No need for a template. We have a Chinese firm we have been working with for years, and Richard, which is the lawyer I work with, a lawyer will reach out to you once things are ready. And then I sent him an image, which I have blurred out here, of the latest 3D printed prototype that we had done in America. We've had 3D prototype made in the meantime, so we can have the CAD made, etc. We have been working with a local USA designer and the 3D printing hub for this. And then he said to me, thank you for the update. Next time we can try designing and making prototype here in China. Now, some people will argue this. This is my opinion, and this is from my experience. I usually do not let the companies and the Chinese manufacturer / sourcing agents do the design for me, nor do I let them do the prototype for me. Now, I will say this is product dependent, what I'm saying. It depends on the product, it depends on the material, it depends on the level of differentiation. So what I'm saying is dependent. Here, this is a product that I really, really believe in. This is a product that I absolutely know is going to absolutely kill it because of the differentiation point, because there's no one marketing to the specific buyer avatar that we're marketing to. And there is no way that I want a Chinese factory or a sourcing agent's designer to own the designs that we have made. I want to own all the designs ourselves. Now, of course, I could go and file for, patents, etc. in China. That's a different story. But at this point in time, I don't want to be making any prototypes for this specific product in China before the CADs, and I don't want them designing it. Now, what would have happened is they would have, let's just say, designed it. They would have done their prototype. Whether they did or didn't want to do 3D printing is a different story. By the time that would have arrived from China to the USA, tried it, etc., it would have taken longer than what it did take here. Yes, it was more expensive to work with a US designer and with a US 3D printing hub. But A, we own all of the rights to the design of the product. And B, it was a lot quicker to go through this process. And then he asked, by the way, how much does it cost to hire a US company to draw the 3D design and making the prototype? What I've noticed, and I have been working with this sourcing agent for a while, what I've noticed is they keep trying to, they think that the cheaper option is what's most important to us. And I've made it clear to them over and over again, it's not about cheap. Like, I'm not trying to have you save me money on every single thing. I'm trying to have the best quality product and the best quality in general for whatever we're doing. Yes, money saving is important in certain things, but there are certain things that I would not compromise on. Now, I've been working with this guy for a long time. He knows me well, and I wrote to him, as you know, product development is my thing. Depending on the project, I choose where to prototype and 3D print. I rarely 3D print in China or have suppliers create CADs, as ownership of the design is crucial to me. So it depends on the project. Sometimes we do this in China and sometimes elsewhere, but the end product will be made in China. 3D printing isn't expensive. This project was a little more complicated as I had another design on the market 3D scanned first. I'll explain that in a second. And then we made minor changes to it, then added our design over it. This made the process faster for the CAD designer. Then we had 3D printed designs made in different sizes so we could hold the product and see what size is best for our ideal client. Then we will have the final CAD work probably was supposed to say, to send to the manufacturer. And then he answered, understood, you're very professional and careful in each process, looking forward to get the final files from your side. So what I mean by that, we basically, I'm going to hold again the lid of the pot, which basically has a Mickey Mouse top handle. What we basically did, let's just pretend that this is the product and we're doing a similar Mickey Mouse handle, only making minor changes to it. Okay, that's not the scenario, but I'm going to have to use this as an example. In order to save time for the 3D designer, for the CAD technician, to make the product, what we did was we had the product 3D scanned. So it goes into a scanner and it gets 3D scanned. And then that file we sent to the CAD technician, and then they just had to make the changes on top of the products that already exist, added our elements to it. We're not infringing on anyone's work here or anything like that. So this was a bit more complicated. And for me to go through this process, I may have been able to do in China, but in this specific scenario, I chose to do this in America. So we had the product, we chose to do it in America. We had the product 3D printed for the sake of sampling in America, held the product, used the product, saw that the product was a bit too big, went back to the 3D technician and asked him to make it to the CAD technician, asked him to make it a little bit smaller. He then had it 3D printed. And then we realized that there was a little bit of the product that needed to be changed, made those changes, had it 3D printed, I think for a third time from my memory. And then the product, in our opinion, was perfect. Had the step files made and the CAD files made, sent that to the sourcing agent in order to give us a correct quote. And then I said to the sourcing agent that it is important for me to get real samples made, but in my opinion, we should be able to have temporary molds made. Now, the final mold for this product is, I think, something like $1,300. So I'll give you two scenarios here. One scenario could have been that we would have sent them the step files, we would have paid for the final mold, they would have created the product, we could have arrived. Now remember, there's a difference between having a 3D printed version of the product, which is not the actual material of the product, and compared to having an actual sample of the product. You can minimize as many fuck ups basically from the 3D printing version, but sometimes even with the final sample, you may need to also make a change. Now, if you already spent thousands of dollars on a mold, $1,300 isn't in the end of the world, but let's just say your mold was $5,000 or $10,000, and now you've had a sample made and you need to make a change. You need a new sample, a new mold, sorry. Okay, and that's another $5,000 to $10,000. So what I did was I asked if they could give us a quote for a temporary mold, and if there's an option to do that. I've had temporary molds made in the past. There usually were either 3D printed molds, or they were silicone molds, or what suppliers sometimes called a soft mold, where those molds usually only last 2 to 3 rounds of samples, whereas an actual mold, which is usually made out of steel, etc., those can go on for, they can make hundreds of thousands or even millions of whatever the product is. So we'll go to my second little slide here. This is just screenshots of my conversations with the sourcing agent. So I said to one of the agent's names, it's a company, one of her names is Cherie or Cherry, I don't know how she actually pronounces it. What is the sample fee including mold for sample? It isn't clear to me. So they basically sent us a quote. I asked for a quote for the actual mold. I asked for a quote for a sample mold. There was something I didn't understand in the price, and this was her answer. There have 2 options. Please check below. To use somersaulting formwork to make samples, which can save your sample fee at the beginning and move faster. It's about $180, and to make sample and basically there's 2 parts to the product. However, these samples are one-time work, so sample fee cannot be returned. I'll translate that to proper English soon. 2, to make a mold first and then make samples. If so, the total mold fee is $1,350, and you don't need to pay this again in bulk order. What she was basically saying there was to make a soft mold is going to cost $180, but this can only be used for 1 set of samples, and it's not a mold that can be used over and over again. And that fee, is also not returned. Not that I even want it to be returned. Okay. Or that we can go on and do the proper mold, and it will cost $1,350. And this is just a one-time fee, and it will make, many units. It's the main mold. I didn't know what somersaulting framework meant. I've never heard of that word. Like, to me, a somersault is what you do in the air. So I asked her, what do you mean by somersaulting framework? She answered, the kind of PVC turning mold. It is to make a soft mold, which I know what a soft mold is. This mold can only be used once or twice. But when we open a mold, the steel mold can be used hundreds of thousands of times. Basically, after you spend thousands of dollars to open a mold, you just pay the material fee. Hope this is clear. So I understood what she was talking about. I wrote, okay, but the sample it makes is the actual product, right? Now, the reason I asked this is because sometimes when they make you a sample mold, it's also not the exact same materials that the product is actually made from. So I asked her, I've made silicone molds and 3D printed temporary molds in the past, so yes, I understand. It's a temporary mold only for samples, but it was important for me to make sure that it's the actual material. So I said, the question is, okay. So the cost of the product was a lot higher than other quotes that we got. And basically what I said to her was, the material here, can the material be changed? Okay, I don't think the product absolutely has to be made out of PVC. And that's why I asked her, so I wrote here, the question is, can we explore different types of materials so we can try to bring the price down, but still not compromise on the quality of the which is the product. The most important thing is it's the effect. It's the type of effect the product has of the product. If we need to put aside for now, so basically what I'm saying to her is, can we change the material without impacting the most important thing of the product and without impacting the quality? There is a certain aspect to the product that if we can't have with a different material, we may give up on that aspect and say, okay, for the sake of, using a cheaper material that still doesn't compromise on the quality and also still doesn't, the differentiation point is still there, basically, we may consider it. So she wrote, I see, because suppliers generally use PVC material, which is a soft and touch feeling as well. PP did have a lower price, but considering other factors, PVC is better. Other factors that we've basically asked to have here. I will try to get other material price for you. Please give me some time. I need to source other suppliers. I wrote no problem to confirm. We still want to get a sample for the PVC if possible. At least 2 units basically made from the temporary mold. Ideally 2 for me, and then 2 can also be sent to the client. So why did I decide to share this with you guys today? Because this is my actual conversation with the actual sourcing agents for this specific scenario, where basically in this specific scenario, you can see that A, they know I know what I'm talking about, basically. B, you can see that I am asking questions. Can we change material? Can we have a sample mold made? Can we have a 3D printed mold done? Or no, does it need to be a soft mold, etc.? I'm asking these questions because the minute that you start asking questions, then you can make A, cost-efficient decisions, and B, decisions that could impact both your pocket, but also the future of the product, okay? If she comes back to me and says, you know what, Sharon, we can actually use this other material. It will change this and this and this about the product, but it will be cheaper, the lead time will be quicker, and you're still going to have type of effect, I may consider it, okay? So what do I want you to take from today's podcast / video is prototyping doesn't have to be only one way. Obviously, if this was a different type of product, okay, not every single product in the world, you could have a soft mold done for it, or a silicone mold, or a 3D printed mold. Not every single product in the world can be 3D printed for the sake of sampling first, okay? It depends. So, you know, this isn't going to be relevant to everyone, but what you can take from this is when you're working on your new product and you've got a pretty huge differentiation point, and you need to have a new design, etc., and you're going to start getting samples done, etc., for the sake of prototyping, you don't have to go and spend thousands of dollars on a mold first always. Sometimes you don't need to. You can spend hundreds of dollars first for a soft mold to be done, and get the proper actual samples sent to you, so that if you need to make changes to the product, you didn't then go and waste a mold, basically, like an actual mold, the steel mold. I've had a little blackout, but I hope that this made sense. I hope that this helped someone. The moral of the story is ask questions. Know that when you prototype, there is many different ways to do prototyping. There's not only one way. It's not that complicated once you get into the process of it. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to, ask about different materials. Now, remember that this is a conversation between me and a sourcing agent. A conversation between me and a supplier a manufacturer may have been a little bit different, okay? What do I mean by that? I may have not necessarily asked, hold on, let me think about how I'm trying to say this. I may have asked, for example, this sourcing agent the tough questions first, and then gone to the manufacturer. Once I've gotten answers from her, then gone to a manufacturer that I'm working with and asked them specific questions about the material. Now that I'm a little bit more educated, let's just say, from learning or from asking questions from the sourcing agents, if that makes sense. All right, I'm going on a tangent here. I feel like this was enough. I hope this helped someone when it comes to prototyping. If you need help with your product development, you can always reach out to me, either through Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, Sharon Evan, or on my website, SharonEvan.com. I will see you all next week, and I hope you all have an amazing weekend.